The UPMC sports medicine experts in Central PA are here to help keep you in the game and improve your quality of life, no matter your age or activity level. Visit upmc.com/Central PA SportsMed to learn more.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Pennsylvania High School Football Report. I am Brian Linder. I'm here with Rymir Vaughn and Evan Wheaton. Rymir, let them hear your voice.
Hello.
Evan, let them hear your voice.
Salutations.
Now you guys know who they are as we move through the podcast. For you new listeners, actually, this is only the second week we've had this squad together for the second installment of our year-round podcast, but we do them twice a week during football season. Guys, we're now into this thing. We're now into this football season. 2 weeks in the books. Been a roller coaster so far. This will come out on Friday. We'll be into our third week. But, you know, a lot's going on. But before we get to that, the whole world wants to know why Rymir hasn't played me yet in EA college football.
Bro, you told me you wanted to do it on Sunday, and I never got word.
I'm lining up in here all the time. I'm playing people at all hours of the night, man.
Answer the call there, Rymir.
Hey, man, we can line it up whenever. I don't care.
And Dan Sostek, I mean, he just quit. He quit making the trip. I'm playing with the Kansas Jayhawks. He's afraid to bring whatever top 5 team he picks to play him out to Kansas. So, what's up with that?
World may never know.
Evan, you don't play any games?
I like to shoot zombies. I see enough sports between high school and watching at home. So, every like Madden, NCAA, every year it just feels like this.
I get too impatient with like the shooter games though, because like you crawl around in the dark for an hour and then somebody just like shoots you and you're done.
Well, I like crawling around in the dark. Nothing like crawling around in the dark.
Do we need to share that, Evan?
Note to local authorities.
Evan Wheaton likes to crawl around in the dark.
We have to unpack that a little bit.
Yeah. Note to local authorities. Sounds like something there, Evan.
Well,
Up on the 25th floor.
Yeah.
Brother.
It's definitely not dark right now. The sun's like right in my window for folks who don't know. I'm like at the top of a high rise and, I've gotten like sunburnt just sitting in my living room because like I'm literally eye level with the sun. So it's not dark up here.
Rymir, you play any other games besides sports games?
Ever since, not really actually, but ever since college football dropped, that's all I've played. Like I haven't played anything else since.
That's all I play. I was the Ladson NCAA tournament champion years ago, back when Darren McFadden was on the cover, way before you guys' time.
I am a 3-time fantasy football champion, I'll have you know.
I don't even want to talk about that because you guys are lame. We don't even have a sports department fantasy football league.
Let's do a draft tomorrow. We can do a draft tomorrow.
Oh, there's still time.
I've been trying to tell people let's get a league. Nobody wants to get one. I'm
down. We can do it tomorrow.
We do it tomorrow.
I mean, me, you, Evan. I'm sure Dan will play. That's 4.
I'll be down. Everybody.
We need to at least get 10. Send out the email. Let's get it. Set it up. Megan will play. Look.
Well, she would beat us all because she housed us in the week 1 staff pick'ems. So
we could probably get. Yeah, she did.
She did, and then she left. She left us to wallow in our L's.
She left.
But we could probably get. I mean, you need at least 10 to 12 to have a good league. I'm sure we could get 12. I mean,
I think 10 is really that sweet
well, 10,
spot.
See, but 10, everybody kind of has an all-star team a little bit.
Yeah.
You don't want to go below 10. 10, you can have a workable league.
I'd love to do like a mid-pen fantasy high school football.
Or statewide one. What about a statewide one?
Statewide? I mean, you could do 2 different leagues. Do like a mid-pen fantasy football and then like a statewide high school football Pennsylvania fantasy team.
One of you guys needs to set up the sports department fantasy draft for like tomorrow.
Got to put a lot of thought in who would be the commissioner and would they rule with an iron fist or would it be like easy going? Can they shut down those shifty under the table trades and
Excellent.
fantasy? I'm a psycho when it comes to fantasy football. Like, it's not even about football. It's about secret alliances, mind games, not screwing over other people, but convincing other people to screw other people over. It's hounding the waiver wire. It's all these different.
I want to be the commissioner just so I can
You would see a different side of me for sure.
just so I can reject all of Dan's trades.
Oh, that would.
That's hilarious.
Oh God, I can see you doing that now.
Look, we had a big week in high school football, and I know Eric and Dan talked a good deal about Harrisburg and Bishop McDevitt, but we can't really go forward without talking about that game a little bit. Rymir, I know you weren't necessarily out there.
Yeah.
Evan, you were there.
Yeah.
And like I said, I know they talked a lot about it. I'll just say from watching the game for the first quarter and a half, I felt like Bishop McDevitt had them. They were shutting down the running game, had guys in the box, daring Harrisburg to throw the ball. Harrisburg couldn't throw the ball for the first quarter and a half. And then Jayon Lewis, who's like 5'10" and 180 pounds, just decided to become a legend. And you could see there were just a couple plays where he was just like, I'm just going to let it rip, right? And he just slung it out there, and he hit on the passes. And then he's like, all right, that gave him a little confidence. And then he took off running a little bit, and he had some success. And the next thing you know, he's like throwing touchdowns to Elias Koch and running for 80-yard touchdowns. And, looking a little Sean Lee-like.
Jayon Lewis, saw a few snaps from him in the LaSalle game. That was just a tiny little sample size. This game with Bishop McDevitt, from what we've seen, like, Jayon Lewis, like you said, he just woke up and decided to be a legend. And now he looks like a starting quarterback in the mid-pen. It's like you said, keeps it for himself, 80-yard touchdown. Decides to hum it, second consecutive 80-yard touchdown to Elias Koch. Whether it was the keepers airing it out, he was playing with confidence in the biggest moment. When you have communities waiting for 7 years for this game, and you have all of the stuff that Harrisburg's been dealing with, Sean Lee being ruled ineligible, the 45-7 beatdown with LaSalle, Sheffy's hand getting hurt, Kevin Brown breaking his foot at practice. Just a laundry list of just things that this program has had to deal with. Jayon Lewis was kind of like a shining light in that moment and just willing his team forward past the finish. Instant classic, overtime thriller. 7 years in the making for this game to return and the way it did. And Jayon Lewis was like the centerpiece of that. Yeah, I've been doing this for a while. That was probably one of, if not the craziest high school football game I think I've ever seen. Maybe not the most like craziest sporting event I've seen, but like for high school football, man, that was nuts.
So for both of you guys, like I said, Epp and Dan talked a lot about it, but it's been a crazy 2 weeks for Harrisburg because we really thought they had all the pieces to be a 6A state title contender coming into the year. Then LaSalle just gives them a big-time beatdown, which LaSalle beat Malvern Prep last week.
Yeah.
And that tells us, again, what we thought. LaSalle's pretty darn good.
Yeah, very convincing 2-0 for those guys.
So Harrisburg's had some adversity here, some major adversity, losing Sean Lee to eligibility to pick commit. And as Evan brought up, Kevin Brown with a broke foot, who's, the number one junior in the state. And Deontay Sheffy with what we heard was a broken hand, to Syracuse commit. They've had some real adversity, and to beat Bishop McDevitt, which, by the way, looked pretty good. We'll talk about it for a second here, too. But, they're a 5A title contenders, Bishop McDevitt. But that was a good win for them. I'm not going to say they looked like a 6A state title team yet. But it's been a crazy 2 weeks where, you get Kevin Brown back maybe at some point. Sheffy gets healthy. Like I said, Jayon Lewis looked a little bit like Sean Lee.
He looked really good. Brian, there were 5 lead changes in regulation. At the start of the third quarter there, start of the second half, 88-yard kick return for Ish Palmer sets up a quick touchdown for Bishop McDevitt. You think okay, maybe this is kind of where they pull away. It was probably a heck of a halftime speech from LaShawn McCoy in that locker room there. But then Harrisburg answers right back. 80-yard rushing touchdown from Jayon Lewis. McDevitt, they're able to do their thing. But Harrisburg takes the lead on a Elias Koch with another 80-yard reception play. Elias Koch, by the way, 6 receptions, 155 yards, and a touchdown.
He is an X factor, Rymir. I know you were about to say something, but he's like 6'3", probably 200 pounds now, and you cannot. I mean, Harrisburg's going to have the luxury now if they can get their offensive line going. Jaron Lewis is a major running threat. If he looks like he looked the rest of the way, and obviously have the good running backs, Nehemiah Ewell, who was a 1,300-yard rusher last year, and Messiah Mick is the Penn State commit, and Sheffy, the Syracuse commit. But Elias Koch out there, I've been seeing this for 2 years. If you throw it up to him, he's going to win that.
Yeah,
most of the time. And you hit him on the slants and stuff. His body positioning is so big. His catch radius is so big too. You're not going to out position him there. So he is a real weapon out there. He's almost unstoppable, especially one-on-one. Harrisburg found some answers here. I don't think they're 6A title contenders still, but week 1 was a disaster. Week 2, they found some answers. But how about Bishop-McDevitt? Because I feel like Harrisburg found some answers. I don't feel like they look like a 6A state title team right now. Maybe, but I'm not sure McDevitt. I think McDevitt's contenders, but I think this loss might have been good for them in the sense where they see where they got to get better. They got to get better in the secondary, and they got to get a little bit more consistent in the passing game.
Bishop-McDevitt will be fine. Look, Harrisburg, I think everyone here, PennLive, picked McDevitt to win this game, but no one had it like I think we all knew it was going to be close. I think Bishop-McDevitt's going to be fine. Like you said, they're state title contenders at 5A. I think with all the offseason stuff that Stone Saunders has been doing with a lot of these new guys, like Jonte Quick and Dom Diaz look very good. You still got Maurice Barnes. They got guys. And, Lucas Lawler, the Bishop-McDevitt's going to be fine. Harrisburg's...
Nas Jones-Davis ran for 150 yards.
Yeah, 150 yards. I don't think this one game is going to find them.
For a quarter and a half, I thought McDevitt was going to run away with this. I felt like Harrisburg couldn't do anything.
Second half kickoff, I think the general consensus was, this might be where they skedaddle away with this thing. But Harrisburg, back-to-back 80-yard touchdown plays, 5 lead changes, man. That game was nuts. Harrisburg really responded, and just a fiery post-game speech from Calvin Everett, the Cougars, just about not laying down, not taking it, getting up, and this and that. You can imagine the different cliche, but with him, it was very much felt. The weather, it was starting to rain a little bit. It was like something went right. Something went right, and for a big thing like that to go right, I'm sure there's still a lot of questions about Harrisburg. Every week we're kind of learning about this team. But, man, for the first thing to really go right, what a thing to go right it was for them. But back to McDevitt, I think they're going to be fine. They're going to use this. Part of moving up to that Commonwealth is, these exposure to those teams like Harrisburg, maybe making that transition to 5A a little bit better because you're getting that talent to kind of test your mettle and match it over the course of the regular season. So, I do think come postseason, they'll be well-oiled.
I think McDevitt will be fine. It's early in the season. They play, 2 games at this point. You're still trying to figure out who you are as a team, a few games into the season. And once they, there you go. Like you said, this loss to help them, it'll benefit them and help them figure out, where they need to get better, what they need to do better. Like you said, they're title contenders. They'll be fine. They'll be fine.
And I know that the other guys talked a lot about Harrisburg, Bishop-McDevitt, but for our listeners statewide, this was a huge game in the center of the state. I kind of want to advance a little bit here too. Now Harrisburg has State College coming to town Saturday. This podcast comes out on Friday. I like to keep things more evergreen, but that's a huge game in the state. State College look really good with the wins over Gateway, and then they beat Altoona 51-0. Eddie Corkery, their quarterback, threw for 6 touchdowns in that win. Ty Salazar, Michael Gall. They got some players. By the way, one of their big guys transferred to Harrisburg. So I'm sure they're looking to come into the city and kind of rough up Harrisburg. But Harrisburg's kind of got the better of them the last couple of years, it feels like, in a lot of ways. This is another very interesting matchup. Like, now we get to see if the State College is kind of for real, maybe. But we also get to see if Harrisburg's going to be building off of this McDevitt stuff, if Jayon Lewis can do it again. Because if he can do it again, then you start to really get excited. And this is a big game for both of these teams, and both of them I think look like pretty good teams. So I'm pretty excited about Saturday and what we're going to see there.
For a lot of teams matched up with Harrisburg, it's a big game, you know. So I mean, but that's just how the Commonwealth is. I mean, this division's stacked, and yeah, State College. You know, a few years ago, it was like State College beat Harrisburg in the regular season. Harrisburg got them in the playoffs. You know, last week it was Manheim Township got Harrisburg in the regular season. Harrisburg got the last laugh in the postseason. So, you know, we'll see how it goes. You know, it's early in the year, but definitely, obviously, kind of that marquee matchup, game of the week. Lo and behold, it's Harrisburg in the game of the week again. But it kind of goes to show you every week with Harrisburg is just fascinating.
Yeah, especially, you know, again, starting out where we felt like they were a state title contender, and then sort of the dismantling.
It's been a roller coaster with Harrisburg, and it's only been like 2 games into this thing. So, you know, buckle up.
The UPMC sports medicine experts in Central PA are here to help keep you in the game and improve your quality of life, no matter your age or activity level. Visit upmc.com/Central PA SportsMed to learn more.
I will tell you guys, look, we're 2 weeks into the season, and we're starting to see some guys kind of emerge statewide. And, you know, I do the list every week of the top performances in the state. We get the fan votes and let fans vote on it. We kind of pick our all-star team for the week from around the state out of it. And I'll tell you, there's one guy at the top of the list this week, Carson Nagel, the quarterback from Bald Eagle area. He threw for 380 and 3 touchdowns in the 39-14 win over Central Columbia. I just wanted Central Cambria. You guys probably haven't watched the film on him, but Carson Nagel's a really good quarterback, probably underrated in the state. He always kind of shows up on these lists. Now, I didn't see him there last week, but if you guys get a chance, if you want to look for a quarterback that maybe you haven't heard of from around the state that you should have heard of, Carson Nagel, for our listeners, is a guy I really like. And again, seeing him show up on that tremendous 22 list, which is on PennLive.com, you know, is I was wondering where he was the first week. I might have just missed him, guys. But Evan, another guy that got there was Gavin Sidbar again this week, 302 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, and the win over Malvern Prep.
Yeah.
Rutgers getting a guy with some potential.
Yeah, he looks really good. Got to see him in person, obviously, week 1, Harrisburg. That win over Malvern Prep is also pretty, like I said, very convincing 2-0 for those guys. There are a lot of guys in the mid-pen who kind of popped off too. Brad Hockenberry, Wes Perry, running back. I think he's averaging something like just a mind-numbing 29 yards per rush. That's like stupid. That's crazy. And then
That's scary.
that's insanity. And then you got I was at Trinity Christian Joy. Man, he was 20 rushes, 223 yards, 4 touchdowns. He caught 2 passes for 22 yards, and on defense, he had an interception. That's insanity.
Both of those guys are kind of underrated. Like, you know, Christian Joy is not the biggest guy. He's not the fastest guy. Rymir, one of the good stories, and I know you're I'm telling you this because you're like the new guy on the team here.
Yeah.
Not like you are the new guy on the team, but you know, the last couple of years, Trinity was bad, okay? And then they hired Jordan Hill 3 years ago, former Penn State player, NFL guy, won a Super Bowl. He's from here in Stilton. And they brought in Mike Maldy last year as his assistant. Well, 2 years ago, Trinity won a district title. And this was like 2 years after they didn't win a game, you know? And they were on an amazing sort of upper trajectory. Jordan left after last season, which was kind of like they fell off a little bit. Camp Hill beat them, went on and won a district title, which we were kind of surprised to see all of that And when Jordan and Mouty left to go coach with Penn State, be a part of that program, a lot of the kids jumped off. And look, I'm not beating them up. There was some uncertainty there. So you got to do what's right for you. But Messiah Mickens ended up at Harrisburg. Michael Shank ended up at Harrisburg. The quarterback, Tanny Young, who's having a really good season. The CD East, the wide receiver, he went there. Chris Thompson, who I think starting for McDevitt, went there. So they had a bunch of guys jump off. Christian Joy stayed. Jacob Hess stayed, Evan, who had over 130 tackles last year. And Emil Way, who's got some Division I offers.
Yeah, he's got about 4 of them now.
They lost their opening game, but then last week they come back and got a good win over East Pennsboro. Like I said, Joy had a big game. I think we put him on our 22. I think he made our 22. He had 222 yards, 4 touchdowns. He also intercepted the pass. That's a good story within the Mid-Penn Conference where these kids, like Christian Joy, I think he ran for like 800 or 900 yards last year because Messiah Mickens got banged up. There were probably a lot of places he could have gone, and would have taken him, but he stayed. And Jacob Hess had a really nice game too. I think he ran for over 90 yards. Really good linebacker for him. It's a great story in the Mid-Penn. The kids just kind of sticking out. He gave us a pretty good interview Friday talking about how he kind of loved the kids he was playing with, and he just wanted to stay and play with his brothers. And that's I'm sort of in the new school thinking, guys, where you got to go do what's best for you in 2024, right?
Yeah.
But it also is kind of refreshing because you guys are young, but that's high school football kind of used to be that way, 20 years ago. I'm 41 now, but 20 years ago it used to be you wanted to play with your boys, So I don't know how you guys feel about it, but it's a good story, I think, in the Mid-Penn.
Oh yeah, it's cool, and a lot of folks would left Trinity and for Christian Joy and guys who have tried to stay there and get the program back on tracks. Like you could feel it was pretty emotional after that win. They were pumped. You would have thought this team just won like a district title, man. They were hyped. It was a big game for them. Kind of piggybacking off the quarterbacks earlier, Gavin Sidwar and J.M. Lewis. I was at another game this week. I did 3 kickoffs in 25 hours, just to give you guys my little stat. But there is of the 3 top returning quarterbacks in the Mid-Penn this year. You can imagine who your first 2 are. I got the stats right here. Stone Saunders McDevitt threw for 3,522 yards last year. Drew Brandstetter threw for 3,394 yards last year. You guys take a guess who number 3 is of top returning passers in the Mid-Penn this year?
Eli.
Yeah, yep, ding, ding, ding. Eli Ryder. He threw for 2,358 yards last year. Obviously, at least 1,000 of those were to Josh Smith. Josh Smith, talking to him after a game in which he had 138 yards receiving at least. He had nearly 200 yards of offense, 4 touchdowns. He completely took over. It's Palmyra and an interception all in the first half. Basketball court, football field, the Josh Smith show just is a year-round venue. But he said, he thinks that Eli Rader is the best quarterback in the league. League meaning, division. And, the numbers kind of back that. It isn't just him gassing up his quarterback. Like, you look at the top returning passers in the Mid-Penn, Eli Rader is right there, So Mechanicsburg is just doing from the preview surveys heading into the year and what they've done so far. There's a lot of hype with them in the Keystone right now. But Eli Rader's a big part of that.
We like to talk about different guys people should keep their eyes on too. And Eli's a fine quarterback and all, but Josh Smith had a really big game for them in that win that you covered. He made our 22. I think he had over 180 yards receiving and 4 touchdowns. He's a guy that's 6'2", 6'3", and has some college potential that is worth people checking out, I think, Evan.
I think he also had an interception. Just to, I'm pretty, it's all a blur, but I'm pretty sure he also had an interception in there on a last second heave before halftime from Palmyra. So yeah, Josh Smith continues to pop eyes.
Guys, before we kind of get out of here, I'll scan in there the statewide rankings for the week, and 6A St. Joe's Prep opened up with a loss to St. Edward out of Ohio. I know St. Edward pretty well. When I was in Daytona Beach, mainland with the National Olympic program, they traveled up and played them in Ohio, and St. Edward beat them. They're a really good team. So I don't know how much we can tell out of that for St. Joe's Prep. But just looking at that, MOTEP's 2-0, LaSalle's 2-0. They're at 3-4. Central Buck South at 2. I don't know a ton about Central Buck South this year, but they better be pretty good. They're ahead of MOTEP and LaSalle. Eric Epler just calling you out there, buddy. Ep puts these together for us. And Nazareth is at 5 at 2-0 with Peyton Falzoni. Now let's talk about your guys, Evan. Matt Zollers and Spring Ford got run out the building by Easton. I mean, what happened, dude? I mean, apparently I was reading the story. Apparently they got after Zollers and sacked him a couple times, and they ran the football on him. And I don't know if you followed up on that, but I know you covered that team a lot. And I don't think a lot of people saw Easton just walking the dog on him like that, because it was, I don't know what the final was, but it was pretty bad.
Yeah, the dog got off the leash and started running around and biting people. That's what that was. Hard night for the Rammies. Just a very hard night for the Rammies. Yeah, I think Matt Zollers had a couple picks there. So I mean, yeah, it was not a good night for Springford. And kind of one of those scores where you think, oh man, did something happen? Like, did he get hurt and this and that? But no, it was just that early non-conference slate where I had a tough opponent, and like you said, got ran out of the building. It's not often the weekly Springford Matt Zoller segment of the PA High School Football Report, is kind of on the negative note there, but these things happen. It's definitely an anomaly for sure for those guys and for that guy in particular, but I'm sure they'll pick up, move on. They got 2 more non-conference games left before they get into Pac Liberty play, and they're obviously chasing a conference crown, which has somehow eluded them during Zoller's tenure. But with him being a senior, highest recruited Pac player, 5-star Mizzou commit, obviously they're hungry.
I'll tell you guys what, too. We talked about McDevitt being a state title contender in 5A, but you continue to look at the top of that ranking. And I mean, I know you're out from Philly. Roman Catholic's number 1. Peters Township's been looking really good at number 2. They're both 2-0. And then I see Pine Richland, who I think started the year outside of the rankings, but they're now 2-0. I kind of predicted they would end up in them because they're just so scrappy and tough all the time. They're up to 5. I think they beat Central Catholic last week, which is a quality win. 5A is looking tough. So, like, we say McDevitt's a title contender because they do have a ton of talent. But, man, that's a tough bracket.
I always seem to gravitate to, 4A when it comes to statewide because, I covered Jersey Shore. They're a powerhouse. Covered Pope John Paul. They've become just a powerhouse in District 1. McDevitt was in 4A. They're obviously not anymore. But, I've always kind of gravitated to, that 4A, looking around the state, see how, those guys are doing. Just going from different areas and knowing those guys and having those relationships and kind of seeing how their season shapes up. So I definitely look at how Jersey Shore and Pope John Paul kind of shape up because that 4A bracket is a little bit more open. Obviously, Aliquippa, but yeah, it's cool classification to keep an eye on.
Evan came here last year, Rymir, promising us that Pope John Paul was going to be a problem, and then I think they kind of let him down.
I believe I thought, the state semifinal between McDevitt and Pope John Paul was going to be so exciting, and then that didn't quite happen. But now McDevitt's in 5A. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon.
I don't think anybody's beating Aliquippa in 4A. I mean, we'll see, but they're so talented. Yeah. I will say Wyomissing had that opener where they roughed up Southern Columbia, and I heard from one of their coaches, they lost to the Harrisburg school last week pretty good. And, the Harrisburg school I don't think is in the PIAA. And they were loaded from what the coach told me. He said they got some boys on that team, man, some big boys. Offensive line, I think a couple of them going to Division One. So Wyomissing got to Wyomissing will be tough. They'll make a lot of mistakes. They'll sort of, I think, be in the mix there. 4A. So I do think it'll be interesting.
You
I
kind of
looked at
wonder. You kind of wonder, like with Wyomissing bumping up, you kind of natural think about like West Perry, and where they kind of fall into that mix because they're rolling right now with Brad Hockenberry, and you know, you look at them staying at 3A, Wyomissing bumping up. Like I know they graduated who they graduated, Marcus Quaker, Ian Goodling, kind of those guys that have put that program in back-to-back district title games, 2 of only 3 ever for the school. One has to wonder, do they go to that third straight? And if they do, who do they run into? If it's not Wyomissing, and can they do it? And, first they got to get there. But West Perry's been pretty exciting so far.
is Brad Hockenberry really averaging 29 yards a carry?
Something ridiculous like that.
Well, I mean, we got to get that in the headline. I'm gonna
something ridiculous like that. Maybe it's not quite 29. I don't know, but Brad Hockenberry is doing some crazy, crazy God's work for West Perry right now.
Doing the Lord's work.
Yeah.
What are we carrying us to church here?
What's that?
He's carrying us to church here, man. He's doing the Lord's work.
Oh yeah.
Hey, you know what? One thing I will put on the radar before we kind of move on here is Fort Cherry won their game. We had Matt Sig on here a couple weeks ago, their quarterback and big time recruit at safety. And I understand I think he broke his hand in that game.
It was like a thumb. He might have broke his thumb or something from what I saw from the Post Gazette.
So that's something to watch on the statewide tip and just to kind of keep on. And I will say too, in 3A, Northwestern Lehigh, man, they're still plugging along. Little Eli Zimmerman, I think we missed him this week. We didn't get his stats, but I think he had a really nice game. Probably should have been in that tremendous 22 statewide all-star team. But, he's not the biggest guy. He's like 5'9". We put him on all PA last year because he had 11 interceptions and helped lead them to the state title game. And he had a monster game too, I believe. And they're sitting there at 2-0 behind Danville and Scranton Prep, who are also 2-0 at the top of the 3A ranking. So, seeing some stuff shake out here. Some teams kind of rise to the top already. Should give us an indication that they really might be players down the road. We're going to find out a lot this weekend. I think with that State College Harrisburg game in 6A, we're going to find out who's for real there and who is not.
I think my big takeaway from this weekend slate is what a entering league play for the Mid-Penn. What a first week this was for league play. I mean, Dan was at an overtime game. We saw a double overtime game from it was Northern overcame a 28-7 deficit against Mifflin County. That went into double overtime. Obviously Harrisburg-McDevitt overtime. This was the week of thrill. I know Mechanicsburg kind of handled business, but this was the week of just thrillers all across the Mid-Penn. It feels like. I mean,
Well, like I said, one of the fun things about this year, Evan, is honestly, I've been here. This is I think my 8th or 9th year, I believe. And a lot of the years I felt like going into the season. Now, granted, I've watched a ton of film those first 8 years, and especially when I got sick and I was kind of laid up there for a while, which I still sort of am. But I watched a ton of film. I watched everybody's huddle, and that probably had something to do with it. But I think outside of that, I felt like we had a better idea of who was who. I felt like there's a lot of teams kind of reloading this year and having to figure some things out. So it's been a little bit of an adventure just kind of seeing how some of that stuff's getting figured out early on. So it's made it kind of fun, I think, just to see who's who and what's what.
And on top of all these reloads, you have the conference realignment. It seems after just 1 week of league play, it's already extremely compelling.
You look at week 1, we're talking about Harrisburg might be a disaster, a dumpster fire. And week 2, we're like, okay, Harrisburg might have something here with Jayon Lewis. Big game coming up. Let's see what they got. That's the fun thing about the football season. And people criticize us you guys said this last week. Well, hey, man, why they line up and play the games and things change week to week. So
I think every single person at PennLive picked Bishop McDevitt and Harrisburg.
Oh yeah.
Just they kind of silenced us on that.
That's the one thing I will say. I don't pick against Harrisburg often, and people are like, oh, he's a home. No, because Harrisburg's made me look smart picking them. and because they got some fight in them. And I think I told Dan that I said, man, Harrisburg's got some dogs, man, and like Kymir Williams and those guys, which Kymir Williams committed to
St. Francis on Friday night when all of us were out at games, and
I actually got a pretty good little interview with him that I needed to have gotten up, and that's Kymir. That's my bad, man. I'm gonna get that up for you today. I got called up from my other work, but I talked to him about that commitment. He's a good player, man. He's one of those kids. Quincy Brandon had a really good game. I'll go back.
Quincy Brandon was great. There was I don't know, like there was this goal line stand. Bishop McDevitt ended up scoring, but it was only from like 2, maybe 3 yards out. Tried running it up the middle. Stone kind of ran out to the side. Quincy Brandon was on him, like white on rice or wet on water, whatever your analogy preference is. They ended up scoring right after that on a touchdown, but he just on defense. It was a great game on defense.
Well, guys, any closing thoughts? What have we learned this week? What are we looking forward to? Anything? Rymir, anything? You got anything for me? You gonna line up?
We can line up whenever. I can't do it today, but we.
Evan, I have the most bylines in advanced media this year, and I'm ready to line up whenever. I'll make it happen whenever.
Life happened
3 o'clock
today.
in the morning, I put my guys on the plane, fly from Kansas. Who you playing with, Rymir, when we play?
I told you, random. Whoever pop up.
Come on, man. We'll fly wherever in the world. I put the guys from Kansas on the plane. We'll fly there at any time. Send location. We'll be there.
We can do it tomorrow. I got some things to handle today, but we can do it tomorrow.
You and Dan.
Man, I'm not ducking smoke. Dan the one ducking smoke. Life just happened to be today. So.
Megan, please clip that about Dan ducking smoke so I can
oh man,
I can post that on Twitter.
That's funny.
Evan,
Dan ducking smoke.
Evan, what do you got?
What did I learn? I learned
What are you looking forward to? What are we taking? What's our message to the people moving out of this podcast?
All right, let's see. Rapid fire. What I learned is that traffic leaving Memorial Park in Mechanicsburg is not for the faint of heart. I learned that when the postponement and all that. Let's see. What did I take away? Harrisburg is very exciting with their bounce back win, and still a lot of questions, but they're a roller coaster. That's my takeaway there. And that also Brad Hockenberry is very, very good at football. So is Christian Joy, Josh Smith. And what am I looking forward to? Man, I'm looking forward to week 3, man. I'm looking forward to week 3. I won't say where I'm going just yet, but I think I'm in for another good one, and I'm just looking forward to week 3.
Guys, tell them how to find you on social media.
Evan Wheaton on X or Twitter or whatever it is.
Rymir, tell them how to find you on social media.
_Mir 1500 on Twitter.
You guys can get our producer Megan Levy Heaton's here, looking on, who's kicking her butts in the pick 'em. But I'm gonna make a comeback. I'm gonna not pick Bowling Springs to beat West Perry ever again. But
yeah,
I'm gonna make a comeback in the pick 'em and whatever. And I'm at Sports by B Linder on Twitter and X, and you can follow me there, but probably shouldn't follow my picks so far this year. It's not going well for me there.
I didn't do so bad week 1, but I think this was a tough week 2 for my picks.
I feel like we should have put Rymir in there as the new guy because I feel like he would have been at a disadvantage and maybe somehow made me look a little better this year.
That's crazy. That's insane.
More the merrier.
I've won this thing more than once. Epler just we got some fuzzy math. I'm like Trump on that one. I want to recount.
Well, when I win the whole thing, I'll add that to my fantasy championships. My football game.
I would be okay with you winning. I would be okay with you and Megan winning.
You just don't want Dan to win.
I don't want Dan or Eric to win. I don't want Dan or Eric to win.
Okay. What if Tom wins?
Well, Tom's not going to win. I love Tom. I love Tom, but I mean,
love Tom, but
Tom comes with the 3 wild picks a week. It's true, right? Like Tom picks 3 games just wildly.
Just throwing darts, just Well,
You
Three
got
of them a
to.
week.
shots beyond the arc. Just
And I'm
lob
not
gotta take
knocking
risks.
Tom, but Tom has like 3 picks a week. They're just like,
You picked Brian. You picked Boiling Springs over West Perry.
well, I can't look again. I can't say anything. I picked Boiling, but you know what? I got talked into that by Boiling Springs, kind of peripheral coach. He doesn't coach football.
You know. Well, for the folks listening at home, just to give you a quick, at Football Media Day, Megan was not there. We didn't even know how to turn on a Nintendo Switch without her.
That's funny.
So when you say, oh, like Megan's winning in the picks, like, it's not a surprise. We literally couldn't do this little thing without her. So
One last nugget before we go. Adam Schefter says DeMar Hamlin starting Sunday for the Buffalo Bills. First
Good for him.
start since he literally died on the field in January of 2023. So big ups for DeMar Hamlin, Central Catholic guy, Pittsburgh guy. We didn't even talk college football this week, but I will say this real quick. Andy Kolonicki's looking really good at Penn State. He might convince me I was wrong about Drew Aller, and Dante Kent from Harrisburg out of Central Michigan, staying that corner. He returned a punt for a touchdown. He's off to a good start this year. I think he's up for a bunch of national awards. He's a special player. Maybe next week we'll talk some college football. You guys know how to find us. Check us out on PennLive.com. We got a bunch of stuff there. Including we'll have our statewide player of the week from the fan vote coming up here soon. And we'll see you guys next week.
The UPMC sports medicine experts in Central PA are here to help keep you in the game and improve your quality of life, no matter your age or activity level. Visit upmc.com/Central PA SportsMed to learn more.